Onerous 5. 4156 Standard Astorian Principality Calendar, December 6th, 26,702 Standard Terran Calendar. Nowhere Navio, Jincho's quarters. Failure! 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 Jincho cried out in frustration as yet another reverse engineering model failed to yield more relevant data. 700,000 attempts. Over 1 million simulations. Nothing! Same results! Same error! Same failures! He yelled in frustration before tossing a data chit across the room. It bounced off the wall harmlessly, joining over 100 more scattered on the ground. His field of view was inundated by graphs, report results, the schematics he was able to piece together from the black ship he all but gutted, specifications, calculations, speculations, theorems, and diagrams he'd been working on since before they left the Hastrung system. His eyes darted over the data, making more correlations, cutting off what didn't work and recalculating every single aspect and vector of approach he could think of. But no matter what he tried or which angle he took, it always ended in abject failure. I don't understand. What is this thing? He asked himself. Brute force reverse engineering made sense in concept. Failed even when all parameters indicated it would work. Secrets lie beneath the surface, but distorted like looking through an ice sheet. I can taste it. I can feel it. I know the secret is there, somewhere hidden, but can't see it directly. The conceptual integrity and dispersion models are brilliant, should be replicable, must be. But I fail to punch through. The fabricator offers no answers. It can make more boogeyman armor, but doesn't know the process or the secrets beyond the building process. His vestigial wings flapped in irritation as his brain and the 2 core processors in his head were pushed to their absolute limits. A process I've seen. Understand, but can't penetrate. How? How did they make it? Why did they make it so confounding? How is it possible? He asked himself, eyes darting everywhere at once, trying to find a parameter or detail he wasn't seeing. Will you shut up? Asked Feshik, as she stirred from her slumber, puffing her fur and feathers as she stretched her arms and shook her head violently a couple of times. Lifting her head from the table she'd been using as a pillow, she glanced around at the veritable mess that surrounded her. Glaring at her leader and nestmate, she continued, You didn't get any sleep, did you? I can't be bothered by petty physical necessities, Feshik. Not when I need to break down the secret of the boogeyman armor. And when it is uncovered, I can discover more of these black ships, replied Jincho without looking at his companion. You're using full sentences? Then this is serious, exclaimed Feshik, her anger partially rescinded. How bad is it? All tests failed the same way. Same mistake. Same error. Same result, replied Jincho, spreading his arms as he moved his fingers around, touching and moving lines and elements that only he could see. Then you should sleep and eat, Jincho. Give it a rest for a few hours. Nothing's gonna change. Or do you want me to send you to the princess so she can force you to sleep again? Threatened the Ikanti in a stern tone. Not now. Not now. I know I'm close to deciphering the mystery, but it keeps eluding me, protested the technician as another data chit was expelled from his head. He grabbed it midair and tossed it away with the rest before popping in another. What am I not seeing? All known possibilities are useless. Discarded like used underwear. That's not a mental image I needed in my head, Jincho, complained Feshik as she stared at her leader worryingly. At least eat something, she said, tossing him one of the surprisingly tasty Lakoa Wyatt had gifted the frantic Ikanti a few weeks back. Jincho caught it and begrudgingly pecked at the dried insect, eating large chunks of it until it was gone in less than 20 seconds. Have you tried using the quantum field disengaging equilibrium disruption theorem? Second thing I tried when the inverse manifold sub-pace model failed. It didn't even register it as a possibility, replied Jincho with a frustrated squawk. Radiation signal detection boosting. Hyperinterpolating triangulation error. Subspace gravitic confluence. Even explored the theory of gate tunneling applications. Nothing. Mixed theories, applied solution on different levels, distinct parameters. Nothing works, he finished, lowering his arms. Tampering always results in self-termination. Integration with other systems that do not have a black ship hull designation always results in self-termination. Observing the process gives a clue, but nothing but shredded pieces of a full schematic with missing segments. The shipbuilders considered all potential avenues to prevent a clear way to reverse engineer their technology. But there must be a solution. There always is. But what is it? The error is a pain up my rear. That's a first, Feshik commented with a chirp. The errors must be driving you crazy. Haven't you paid attention, Feshik? There are no multiple errors. Only one. The same. Over and over and over again. No deviation from it. The results vary, but the error remains. He squawked angrily as he fell onto his back, hitting the floor, splayed out. He stared at the ceiling, eyes still scanning parameters, graphs, and a dozen other readings and test runs, filling his field of view through enhanced reality. Wait, what? Feshik asked, surprised. She stood up, moving to where Jincho was, and sat next to him. How is that possible? You're asking the wrong Yikanti, Feshik. Now I'm Wormbrain. It shouldn't be possible. But it is, replied Jincho, softly hitting the floor with the back of his head every few seconds. Can't be, but it is. All parameters say it is impossible, yet it happens all the same. Theoretical models say that imitating background radiation is possible, but it can't be so efficient. The larger the mass the armor covers, the more difficult it becomes. Less efficient to hide. But even at the lowest parameter, it will remain superior to all other known cloaking technology available for Voidcraft. But ship-wide radiator effect? Difficulty locking down with sensors at long ranges? How does it work in conjunction with all of it? And that's not even the worst part, complained the Yikanti. What could possibly be more complicated than that? Asked Feshik, taken aback. She'd reviewed some of the reports Jincho had filed, sure. And she was a good mechanic, but even though she could somewhat stand to somewhat understand the many fields and complex work that interested her capricious leader, she simply wasn't at his level. But it was enough to comprehend just how difficult the situation was for him. You're not going to tell me that it can hide scanners, right? Worse. Scanners work as intended. Bright, clear mark without a drop or distortion in signal. Jammers also work as intended. Reviewed data from Drazen Encounter. Their effectiveness shows that the armor isn't built to counter either of them. Against those, the Boogeyman armor is ineffective. The data chip was suddenly expelled from his head, landing on the ground, but Jincho didn't notice it. Or if he did, then he simply didn't deem it worth the effort to toss it across the room. Then what's the error? How can this weird armor work against some things but fail against others? She asked, trying to help Jincho in any way she could. The error repeats. The error is consistent. The error is cruel and merciless, came his cryptic reply as he took a deep breath. The error says that there is no error. What? Exclaimed Feshik. That's absurd. It is. And it is true, cried Jincho as he continued to hit the floor with the back of his head. All models don't work because the armor isn't doing anything special. Nothing that any model, tool, or instrument can recognize. No energy fluctuations other than dissipating excess heat. Thought that was the clue. But when heat sinks and heat banks are full and overworked, the Boogeyman armor only loses efficiency. It doesn't stop. It matches background radiation to appear invisible and undetectable under a threshold. But why does distance matter so much? Then there is the design of the ships. Notice the discrepancy early on. Why bother with distinct models? Why not upscale ships and be done with it? Can't be random. Aesthetic appreciation was not considered. Purpose, but not universal. Purposes, directives, objectives. All different. All are designed to carry out a mission and fulfill a goal. They fit a role. Intelligently designed to take advantage in all aspects. Shipbuilders are nefarious creatures for tempting me so, only to torture me. There is nothing more to learn at this point. Can't advance unless I discover what's wrong. Can't discover more secrets unless I overcome the error. But if there is no error, then why don't any of your models, simulations, and decryption attempts work? There should be so many inconsistencies with just a single test model, Feshik said, lying next to Jincho. Maybe you should give up this time, Jincho. Never. It's just technology. All technology can be understood, applied, and replicated with enough knowledge. I've seen the process. It isn't a problem of not knowing the tools to build what we need. Application and function are the problems. Application and function. Elusive little worms, said Jincho, finally coming to a rest. I will understand it. The answer is there. Hidden, but there. I will find it. Feshik reached past Jincho and took the discarded data chit. Connecting it to her portable datapad, she saw tens of thousands of failures, all sharing the same end result. It was everything Jincho described. She dropped her datapad, choosing to give her leader some company. They remained there for long, silent minutes that felt like decades, just hearing each other's breathing and the occasional wobbling hum vibrating inside Jincho's chest. There was no way for her to aid Jincho with his vendetta against the accursed shipbuilders. No one would deny that the black ships and their boogeyman armor were a marvel of engineering and purposeful design. How could they compete against genius engineers, hailing from a vastly superior technological nation who had, for all intents and purposes, foreseen every possible way the Principality, and likely other lesser nations, could attempt to reverse engineer their technology? It was an impossible conundrum. Yet the mentioned error didn't let her rest easy. It came back to her spinning inside her mind. How was it possible for a singular error that wasn't marked as an error but by virtue of repetition was undoubtedly an error to be uniquely constant? Was it just another failsafe? A fluke? Something like that couldn't be mere happenstance. A desired outcome like that could only come about through intelligent design. Her 6 eyes widened. She'd long since learned that Jincho was stubborn, persistent, and once he set his mind to something, he wasn't going to let it go. Hey, Jincho, what if the error isn't an error but a trap? A shiny bauble to keep your attention on it? Humans made this thing. They think differently than Yukanti. They do, and I thought of it. Run other tests, different avenues of approach. All vectors, all angles I know and see. Yet no answers come. He inhaled deeply, chest rising. His eyes blinked slowly in succession, their frantic moving around slowing down. Bauble, pretty bauble, shiny bauble, he mumbled. What is the bauble? Error is part of the problem? Larger problem? No, not larger. Simpler? Complex? Hidden? He exhaled with a whistle. Hidden, not hidden. Error says there's no error. No error implies no hidden. No stealth. What is stealth? Camouflage to remain unseen from prey, and for predator to attack. Misleading. Lies. Illusion. What is not. What isn't is. Faishik remained silent as Jincho continued on his incoherent rambling, but her attention was on him completely. Whatever twisted nonsensical to anyone but him thoughts were bouncing against his processors and brain, only he could comprehend and appreciate. Targeting. Why does locking in fail so much? Bouncing off signals without revealing itself. Even if you can see it, locking in remains a problem. Here. Not here. Here. Not here. Always fluctuating, but not in a cycle, yet not randomly. Order in the chaos? Chaos in stability? What is the answer? Complex, simple, hidden, plain sight. Contradictions that work, mysteries without answers, results without questions. Technology isn't outside the scope of understanding. 2 sets of one set of 2. Armor and ship united. Intricate design. Can't function without the other, but one can endure without the other. Here, but not quantum mechanics. No energy distribution or containment cores for that. There is uncertainty in order, certainty in chaos. Fundamentals bent to function on another level, said the Yukanti engineer, eyes focused on a singular point on the ceiling. His companion let out a wheezing squawk. Forgive me, Jincho, but I don't understand anything you're saying anymore. With a sudden motion that startled Faishik, Jincho sat up, 2 pairs of eyes looking back at her. Neither do I. But that is good. Technology is technology. Made by humans. Different. Unique. Advanced. But not beyond total understanding. Reached limits of what I know. What do I not? I was worm-brain for thinking secret was hidden. Well, yes. Hidden, but not. Too focused on little parts. Must make further observations. Answer lies in application and function. Good, exclaimed Faishik, getting to her feet. Now you're going to sleep. Sleep for weak. Much more needs doing. Progress on prototypes must continue. Furtherments necessary. Need to solve. The female Yukanti grabbed his neck, choking out the rest of his protest. She then proceeded to drag him across the floor until they reached the small pile of pillows that served as his nest. Nest? Now! No more research and science for you until you've had a full night's rest. One day I shall defeat sleep. Useless. So useless activity, Jincho protested softly, obeying his supreme intellect that told him not to antagonize his companion any further. Until then you are sleeping. And don't think I'm going to fall asleep again anytime soon, she warned, all but tossing him to the pile of cushions. Wordlessly, Jincho lay on his preferred bed, snuggling against the soft mounds as he closed his eyes, suddenly feeling very, very tired. The secrets of the black shipbuilders were still out of his grasp, but they were now well within his reach. Rest came easily.
Calling all sci-fi fans, every new Black Ship main story and side story is now live on Vox 9, plus the latest chapters of The Human from a Dungeon. And we've added a brilliant new human narrator, Peter Rambo. Free episodes drop weekly. Find them at vox9.io. Playlists are in the description.
Noir Navio brig. Commander Redford Kalen walked through the brig with 4 Marines acting as his escorts. He gave their Kaystan prisoners a quick glance as they sat inside their cells. Inora and Denko Kaystan were provided with some minor entertainment in the form of data pads without access to any network. Igor Kaystan, for his part, stubbornly remained defiant, huddled in his bunk bed as he tried to cling to what little dignity he had left. Redford was genuinely impressed by the Commodore's resilience. Milcades had interrogated him thoroughly, and he'd lasted longer than the Royal Marine Captain thought would be necessary. Even after he divulged everything he knew, which, as he claimed, wasn't much, he remained, for the most part, unshaken by the ordeal. Outwardly, at the very least. But what could be confirmed was worrying. If the lackluster response from House Kaystan against Ezkit Adante's incursion had not been enough, it was now clear that the Kaystans had moved a substantial number of their private defense ships. Maybe they were deployed to counter the pushes made by Damian Valto and Vashakati Reed. Still, even at the earliest, every action uncovered of those movements was made before that mark. "What are you preparing for, Cornelius?" Redford asked himself, unsure what the man he once loved like a brother was scheming towards. Pushing his thoughts to the back of his mind, he stopped in front of Yacide Kaystan's cell, his 4 escorts coming to a halt as they secured the perimeter. For a moment he watched the woman, resting on her back, feet uncovered, tapping her datapad every now and again and humming to herself. "Is there a reason as to why you honor me with your visit, Lord Kalon?" asked Yacide in a polite tone, her white, fair skin contrasted by her long, raven-black hair, as she tilted her head to the side enough to see the aged commander's stoic expression. "I've come with questions that require answers." "You will provide them," he said, as the guards in turn disengaged the field on the cell and gave him access inside. The Marines stood firm, fingers dangerously close to the triggers on their weapons, and ready to take aim at the tiniest wrong move from the woman. With a final tap to her datapad, Yacide sat at the edge of her bunk bed, watching up at the rather imposing, dignified man wearing a crisp Royal Navy uniform. "Why should I humor you, Lord Kalen?" "Because otherwise, I will be forced to use other, far more unpleasant alternatives. I would rather not, for the sake of courtesy and as a show of mutual understanding between 2 Royal Navy officers. There is no necessity for extremes, wouldn't you agree, Lady Yacide?" "My kin, Igor, would like to differ on that, Lord Kalon. Alas, his mind remains his own. I do suppose you were as gentle as possible given the circumstances. If I refuse to cooperate, am I to suffer his fate?" she concluded. "That is why I am here," replied Redford, his expression solid and unmoving. "I would rather avoid that outcome. I need not know much, nor is it my intention to insinuate that you know where Andrew Kaystan is hiding." "You are wise, Lord Kalen, for you are correct." "I do not know my uncle's current location, and if I were to know, I wouldn't tell you either. Courtesy and gratitude, great as they are limited by loyalties and convictions, are they not? Tell me, what is it that you wish to know? If it is within the limits of what I deem to be adequate repayment, I shall answer." Redford nodded, grateful for her gesture and sincerity. "Elucidate me, if you will be so kind, Lady Yacide. Why are your defenses so lackluster? As vassals of House Draymore and the proud traditions of House Kaystan, even with this succession dispute sowing chaos and confrontation between loyal subjects of the Principality, your naval capacity is far inferior to what I initially thought. I doubt you've suffered such disproportionate casualties across the breadth of your forces and that of your vassal houses and the plethora of houses under your direct care." Yacide analyzed the veteran commander for a long, silent moment before replying. "Lord Tamirin's interests lie elsewhere. For years, decades even, he's been reducing the number of our available warships, favoring weaker patrol vessels, cheap in-system defenses, and an increase in civilian ships." She paused to catch her breath, though the commander noticed the way she clenched her right hand tightly. The years prior to his Lord Regent's proclamation saw an increase in these activities. None other than himself and his closest adulators knew the real motives. "I'm certain of it," This conflict has only weakened us further, Lord Kalen. Redford nodded in understanding. I share in your frustration, Lady Yacid. However, there is little to be done until that silver-tongued viper is unseated, if you are to pardon my insult. You are pardoned, Lord Kalen. You will find not a loving niece of that three-forked snake in me, replied the black-haired woman with a vindictive smile. What of your recent ship mobilizations? What can you tell me about those? Redford pressed on. Very little, I'm afraid. Esteemed I'm not in the eyes of Lord Andrew, and despised by Lord Tamarin I am. I know not the plans formed behind closed doors, for I only hear whispers. What I do know, Lord Kalen, and as much as I am willing to divulge, is that a considerable portion of our void ships have been dispatched to multiple zones of interest, with only a select few left behind to defend our territory from foreign aggressors, answered Yacid, offering a firm stoic expression. That would be all, Lady Yacid. Thank you for your forwardness, said Redford, politely bowing his head. Use the information wisely, for I know not any plans or real numbers. With this, my gratitude is expended, she declared with finality. Understanding her words, he moved to leave the brig, shooting a glance back at Yacid, who was already back in the position he had found her in. A secure ping echoed in his head caught his attention as the guards locked her cell once, and his escorts took positions. What is it, Galt? Forgive me, Commander, but we've confirmed that 2 short jumps away there is a member of House Caiston in a semi-vulnerable position, answered Galt diligently. Head Officer Saraton de Shire has confirmed that Kendall Caiston is present in the Dynasty system. Redford considered his options for a fraction of a moment before giving his final decision. I shall consult with Her Majesty. Set course to the nearest jump point. At once, Commander. The connection died a moment later, and his resolve was renewed. There were more Caistons to hunt, with the grand prize yet to be found.